4-inch heels so I could stand above the podium and go kind of eye to eye with these 6-foot shaved head horror writers who are making me a little bit nervous about where they actually get their inspiration from. So, my book is Evenfall, and it's the story of a man who fell in love with one woman, married her sister, and then spent the rest of his life and his afterlife making amends. And it's, the way I pitched it was as a cross between The Notebook and Ghost, or The Notebook and Truly Madly Deeply, if you're an Alan Queen fan like I am. And I thought that I would tell you, since it's a ghost or paranormal night, the story of how I got my idea for Evenfall, and then read you a super short bit from the book. So, my first job out of college was as a reporter, and one of the gigs that I had was the real estate column. So every month or so, they would send me out to look at a house and write about it. There were all these beautiful multi-million-dollar homes. And one day I got a call for this colonial that was built in the 1700s. And I tried it out and met the real estate agent, and it was a beautiful house. It was set in the woods. It had some of the original antique floors, some of the original windows. And the agent said to me, "You have to come see the attic." And I had very few rules because I was 24, but one of the rules was I did not go into basements and I did not go into attics. Because basements always had spiders and attics always had bats and billiards. But she insisted, so I went. And it was beautiful. It was, all hardwood floors, and there was a huge beam running down the middle, kind of like this, but it was like the trunk of a tree. And it looked just like the mast of a ship. Except that, it would be a sinking ship. It was like a horizontal sort of article. And when I said that to the real estate agent, she said that the area was close to Mystic, Connecticut, where they built a lot of ships. And in the off-season, the shipwrights, or the builders, would do homes instead. So it was possible that this house had, in fact, been built by a shipwright. And over in the corner was a little room that was a little bit bigger than the size of a modern bathroom. And it was at a door, and there were no windows. And I said to her, what's this? And we went over and we looked, and there were boxes. But she said, it's a keeping room. And they used to use this room if someone in the family was sick, or sometimes if there was someone that they wanted to keep hidden away. So I went home and thought about that and wrote my article. And in the middle of my writing, a friend called. And he was in his 50s at the time, very respectable, owned his own business, didn't smoke, rarely drank, the whole upstanding citizen thing. And he happened to be looking for a home. And I said to him, "Adam, I have the perfect house for you. I just went today. You have to go and see it. It's not on the market yet, so call the real estate agent, who's someone he knew. But you should do it soon because it's going to go fast." And I finished my article, and a couple of hours later, the phone rang. It was my friend, and he said, "I have to talk to you. I have to talk to you about the house." And I said, "Okay." And I said, "What did you think? You're an antique dealer. What did you think of the floors and the windows?" He's like, "Oh my God, it was beautiful, and the built-ins that they had, and the way that it was sited, it was just amazing." And I said, "I'm amazed that you got in that fast. How did the real estate agent do it? Because I know that the woman he had just died, and her daughter lived next door, and they really weren't 100% ready." He said, well, that's what I'm calling about. I didn't go through the real estate agent." And I said, "Oh, so you met the owners. What did you think about them?" He said, "Well, the man I could reason with, but the woman wanted to shoot me." And I said, "Adam, why did she want to shoot you?" And it turned out that he had gone to find the house based on my description, and it was hard to find. And had pulled in and had been so drawn to the house that he had gotten out of his car. And after he got out of his car, he looked in the window, and then somehow or another he actually wound up inside. And the owner of the house, the woman whose mother had passed away, had seen him pull in, and had not seen him come out. So had gone through the woods with her husband and her shotgun, and her phone to call the state police, who also showed up, and there might have been dogs involved. And I never quite got the full story on how he wound up inside or how far into the house he had gotten, because quite frankly, I didn't want to know. And I had to call my editor and explain, and then my editor had to call the real estate agent, who had to call the owner, who was really upset, and I almost lost my job. And the whole time, his wife, who knew everyone, kept saying, it was like he was drawn to it. It was as if someone was calling to him inside. And once I realized that I still had my job, and I decided I would keep the friendship, I thought that this might be a really interesting story. What happens if something inside the house would call you? Or what if the house itself, because the house had been there for so long and had seen so many things. So in my book, Evenfall is a character. and you can kind of trace the evolution of the family and the life cycle of several life stories by the history of the house. So that is my ghost story for the night. There's no horror, no one died, and I'm not going to shake my head. But I thought I'd read a very short part about when the ghost, Frank, is in the house with his great-grandfather's wedding ring. Love, rage, bitterness, betrayal, the power behind these emotions is enormous. We feel them in our hearts, in our bones, in the very atoms of our being. A metal object cooled and tainted by human hands could remain the bearer of those emotions, could contain the energy within it for years. A portable power source, if you will. One made more potent by its history and its hiding place, by the storms and the seas through which it was carried. Even when I was alive, there were times I thought I could hear the ocean from this attic, landlocked as it is. But now that I'm dead, there are spells, particularly during storms, when the waves seem to crash so loudly, I fear the house will wash away. This house was built by my grandfather, a sea captain whose last voyage took almost 2 years. During his absence, my grandmother's hair turned white, though she wasn't waiting for him. When he finally returned, he swore it was his last trip. He'd had enough, he said. He wanted to sleep in his own bed, feel solid ground beneath his feet, and eat apples plucked fresh from the tree, not dried and hardened into the leather. But the house they lived in was in New London, just a few streets away from Long Island Sound. My grandfather awoke in the morning with his eyes already searching for the ocean. The smell of the salt air was like the perfume of a lover, intoxicating him from across the room. My grandfather was torn. To go to sea again meant the risk of losing all. Even if he navigated his way safely through the storms that surely lay ahead, there was no guarantee for what he would find when he returned home. He could read the perils there each evening in my grandmother's eyes as she brushed her long white hair and gazed into the fire. Yet living so close to the sea was torment. To escape, he moved his wife and young family as far inland as he could bear. To my grandmother, the new house must have seemed like a reprieve, a testament of her husband's love. She planted peonies and roses, grapes and apples, filled the house with cut flowers and fruit. She named the farm Evenfall for the space between the day and the dark. She lived as a happy woman, and no trace of her remains, unless you count the harvest the land yields each summer. But my grandmother was wrong. This house was built not for her, but as a shrine to her rival. My grandfather hired many of the same men who built his ship to construct the house, and they're careful reminders of the sea are everywhere, if you know where to look. I know where to look now. I rest my hand against the beam that runs the length of the attic and feel it vibrate like a mast in high wind. The floorboards creak and slant as if they were at sea. The round window at the peak of the roof is no more than a porthole, really, and in storms I've almost seen him sitting there, brought out of the darkness for a split second during flashes of lightning. My grandmother took one sea voyage herself the summer her eldest daughter turned 16. They traveled to Europe on one of my grandfather's ships, bringing with them the girl's 2 sisters, but leaving the baby, a boy of 2, at home. My grandfather also stayed behind. The women filled trunks with the latest fashions, wrote letters describing the salons and dinner parties they attended. They set sail for home on a calm August night, eager to return. But a storm blew up just 3 days out from land. It salvaged the boat, turned it around, tossed it upon the shoals. The captain survived, as did a handful of crew members. My grandmother and her children did not. Her body was found more than a week later, in what state the captain did not say. He buried her remains quickly, saving only her ring, which he returned to my grandfather himself. Inside, I dream, I hope, I love. In summer the trees are full, but in fall they drop their leaves, and the valley and surrounding land crouches below the house like a cat before it springs. If someone searched very hard, they could just see, from this attic window, the things they hold most dear. The faintest glint of sunlight on water, the white circling wings of gulls, the remote, unreachable face of the woman they love, telescoping away into darkness. Thank you.